Alex, do you look at the news? Do you look at stuff happening like in Colombia? Every day there are now these appear to be completely unreconcilable battles. Do you see something existential in them, or do you think it's just politics or culture war? Or
well, existentialism is always sort of at the basis of political and cultural disputes. There's always some like bedrock that people are working from. Because if there weren't, then you could just solve these disputes by using reason. You could just sort of figure out what the disagreement is, figure out who most agrees with the bedrock that you both share, and there you go, like problem solved. But no, there's some kind of philosophical bedrock. The thing that people are looking for, the reason why you can't just argue people out of this stuff, and it's something that I've spoken to John about before, and I think we'll agree on, is that wherever this meaning thing exists, if you look at traditional centers of meaning, art and poetry and religion, like, one of the unifying features is that it is non-propositional.
Yes.
It's not something that you put into a syllogism. It's not something that you sort of rationalize and argue.
Means?
So it's like, okay, the way I'll explain it is, I imagine, I kind of wanted to make like a sketch. What I'm trying to say is that the way of doing philosophy that arises with the analytic philosophical tradition, so trying to translate all philosophy into like, if P then Q, P therefore Q, like that rationally follows, logical deduction, that kind of stuff. This is not how people interact with the world. This is not how people behave. If you open the Bible, you do not find a single syllogism. Like, this is not why people come to believe in God. This is probably something you'll talk about with Richard Dawkins and Ayaan Hirsi Ali. I imagined, for example, this sketch I wanted to make. There's like a man who is in desperation about to throw himself off a bridge, and someone comes up to him and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, I'm just so hopeless, life has no meaning. And the guy says, well, have you ever thought about the question of God? And he says, I've thought about it sometimes. Maybe I feel like I'm being listened to. And then he recites a poem to him, and he's overwhelmed with beauty, and he considers getting off of the ledge. And the man talks him through this narrative. He tells him about his own struggles with meaning and purpose. And the man's like, okay, I feel heard, I feel seen, and he's about to climb back over the ledge. But then he remembers that the principle of sufficient reason fails because of modal fatalism in the academy, and so he throws himself off the bridge. It's not how people think. It's not how people behave, right? Like this, like Keats says that, he says, do not all charms fly at the mere touch of cold philosophy. Philosophy will clip an angel's wings, conquer all mysteries by rule and line.
But you have a whole show devoted to philosophy. This is your topic. How?
Yes. Is that the time? I think we're... Yeah, I do, but...
Presumably you find it helps you. I mean, I'm really fascinated to know. You make... where some people are saying that atheism is going out of fashion, you are doing a good job of trying to bring it back into fashion. Do you find something in that atheistic philosophical line of inquiry to fill your soul?
No, but atheism doesn't really have that kind of content, right? And you're right that my show is all about philosophy, but whereas when I was like a 17 or 18-year-old getting started, my whole show, my whole shtick was doing the well actually thing, was doing, well, don't you know that commits that logical fallacy, and therefore that doesn't actually follow from that. And you know what, it worked. People liked it. They thought, oh, this is cool, and they watched it. The reason I'm saying this now is because, I'm not a 17, 18-year-old anymore. I've realized that it's not what connects with me. It's not, like, I can't remember where it comes from, but C.S. Lewis at one point talks about how when he made this shift, and what I'm trying to say is that where I used to do that, I still talk about philosophy, but I am trying to encourage my audience to, instead of getting down and analyzing every brushstroke of a painting and trying to understand the Mona Lisa by looking at it through a microscope and trying to figure out what the pigment is, by just stepping back and looking at the picture and realizing that that's what you were supposed to be doing all along. C.S. Lewis, when he made this kind of shift, because C.S. Lewis used to be an atheist, he used to be the rationalist atheist type, and then, okay, he becomes a Christian, but before that he realizes the importance of narrative and the non-propositional, and he realized that he was being asked by what I see as now sort of the popular philosophical analytic tradition, he's being asked to deny that which is most real to him. Meaning, purpose, narrative, stories that connected with him. He was being asked to deny that and accept as true the things that were most unreal to him, like numbers and abstractions and sort of geometric shapes that sort of exist somewhere in the Platonic form of the realm of forms or whatever. And that's just not how humans work.
So you're already on the C.S. Lewis journey then. You did 2 steps out of 3.
Yes,
get you back here in 10 years.
You mentioned my previous YouTube name. It's why one of my good friends used to call me his second favorite CS. I can't see something like that coming around the corner, but I've learned a lot from the man about specifically this. But C.S. Lewis himself, even being one of the most prolific apologists for Christianity in the world, realized that it's not about the apologia. He wrote a poem called The Apologist's Evening Prayer, which he imagined sitting down and though spending days and days arguing successfully for God's existence. I can do it if you want. It's like 2 paragraphs. It's quite short. I don't want to take up too much time. It's wonderful. He says, from all my lame defeats, and oh, much more, from all the victories I seemed to score, from cleverness shot forth on thy behalf, at which, whilst angels weep, the audience laugh, from all my proofs of thy divinity, thou who'dst give no sign, deliver me. Thoughts are but coins. Let me not trust instead of thee their thin-worn image of thy head. From all my thoughts, even my thoughts of thee, thou fair silence, fool and set me free. Lord of the narrow gate and needle's eye, take from me all my trumpery, lest I die. And coming from C.S. Lewis, that is an extraordinary revelation about what all of this is really about.
Well, you know, we promised surprises. To have the famous atheist quoting beautiful C.S. Lewis poetry is a great beginning to this conversation. John, you don't recite C.S. Lewis. What do you do to... Are you a theist? Are you halfway to being a theist?
I would describe myself as a non-theist. A non-theist thinks there is still an open question about the referent of words like sacredness, without agreeing to the proposal that the only way that can be captured is by a supernatural, super thing, super person. So that you could, like, there are religions that are properly non-theistic, like Taoism, Zen within Buddhism, things like that. But I want to pick up on something Alex said. First of all, like you, I'm very impressed with the flexibility and depth of Alex's thought. I want to pick up on what he said about the non-propositional. This is a big chunk of my work as a cognitive scientist. I've been arguing that there are 4 kinds of knowing. There is 1, the propositional, what Alex has critiqued. And each one of these has its own kind of memory. This is how we know that they're actually distinct things. And then there's your procedural memory. This is knowing how to do things. You knew how to walk and sit down. You didn't do that by running an argument. That's a skill. It's not a belief, it's a skill. But it's a way of being in contact with reality. Then you have your perspectival knowing. You know how to notice things, how to focus your attention, how to be present or absent with people, right? And this you know that you have a kind of memory attached to this. This is your episodic memory. This is when you remember specific events and the perspectives you took on them. And then there's a deeper kind of memory that's called your participatory memory, your participatory knowing. This is your knowing by how you and the world fit together, given biological constraints, cultural constraints, historical constraints. For example, there was all kinds of things laid out for you culturally and biologically about walking on the stage and sitting in a chair. That was all available to you, in which if I dropped you into Papua New Guinea, you'd be going like, right? You wouldn't know. So all of those things. Now, why is that important, given what Alex said? Well, the argument is that those non-propositional kinds of knowing are where most of your cognitive agency is. That's where most of your meaning making is. Let me give you an example. We think we're talking abstract thought when we're talking propositional. Listen to the word abstract, lift out. We talk about moving around and progressing through an argument, or getting to the end, or what's underneath this argument, or what does it stand on, or can I we use all this language, and what's becoming apparent from cognitive science is we take all of that non-propositional machinery that we use for navigating the world, I mean like the physical world, and what we do is we bootstrap it up into navigating the intellectual world. And so this world up here, the abstract world, can't actually function autonomously. It has to constantly get nourished by the non-propositional. That's what he did with the poem.